Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Us Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. In this episode, I am going to be talking a little bit about all or nothing thinking and self-deprecation. So in the past, I used to have this idea that you could sort of take a step back once you'd engaged and no longer engage in the compulsive behaviour. So let's say you've actually chosen to engage, you're on TikTok, you masturbate, you have an orgasm. Like in the past for me, what would happen then is I'd have the thought, okay, well, I've already engaged, I've already relapsed, may as well carry on, right? Because, I'm going to be back down onto day zero of like the no-fap streak, I've already relapsed, doesn't really matter, may as well crack on. That would be my approach in the past. Nowadays, how I think about it is definitely a lot more balanced in the sense that, yeah, obviously if you've already engaged, if you continue engaging, you're just strengthening those addictive neural pathways way more. That's not going to benefit anybody. It's just going to make you feel way worse. However, I don't think of it in the same way that I used to think of it, because in the past, I used to believe that it would be quite simple to kind of overcome that all or nothing thinking, that you would be able to detach from it. And I made YouTube videos talking about that. So I'll just play a little bit here.
Forgot everything that I'd ever learned, and suddenly I was just reduced to this shameful creature almost. Which was really obviously hard. It was so confusing because that conflicted so much with usually who I am. And so I think that shame and guilt was a really big reason why I felt so severely bad after this cycle. So this all or nothing thinking can be very detrimental because, as I say, you don't want to end up feeling like nothing. We need to bring some more compassion, some more balance, some rationality into this whole equation when we're trying to quit porn. If we have a relapse, it's not the end of the world.
So that's quite an interesting video because I was sort of on the right lines. This is from about a year or two ago before I met Mary Paulus. And I was talking about how I felt reduced to just being this like worthless, shameful creature, having engaged. And back then, I didn't know why I felt like that. Now, having had the education I've had, I realised that actually that was just another ploy by the addicted part of my mind. The addicted part of the mind wants you to engage in your compulsive behaviour, and it's going to do whatever it can to try and get you to engage. So if one way of getting you to engage is making you feel disgusting, making you feel like a creep full of shame and like an idiot for engaging again, having tried to stop so many times before, well, it's going to do that and it's going to try its best and you are going to feel terrible. And so all that self-deprecation that's going on is actually part of the addiction. And I think, yeah, obviously you're going to feel pretty low and, low in confidence and things like that if you are in an addiction, because it is difficult. But what I would really recommend for anyone listening to this is realizing that actually what's going on in that moment is you're probably wanting to engage in the compulsive behavior again. And you engage once, you're going to want to engage again. And that's just how addiction works. It's engaging that very first time which leads to those addictive neural pathways being formed and you wanting to engage again in the future. And when you take not a break, but when you choose to overcome this problem, when you choose to like learn a specific tool to deal with it for good, and you do make that choice over and over and over, and you willingly accept some temporary discomfort along the way, and you have a very specific tool that allows you to accept that discomfort and think it through correctly, well, over time what's going to happen is you're going to look back on this life in the addiction and you're going to see it from a totally different perspective. That's where I feel like I'm at now. I look back on being in the porn addiction and I think, wow, like it is so interesting how the addicted part of my mind would create all those feelings of shame, would create low confidence and make me feel so terrible. And I see it as all part of the addiction. So yeah, in the past I would engage once and then want to engage again and get into the binging cycle. But all of that was just one package deal. When you're in the addiction, you engage once, you're going to want to engage again. And that's just going to happen because that's how the brain works essentially. So I could talk about having these new thought patterns and an alternative approach where you engage once and you realize that it's not all over, but that's still sort of denying the reality of what just happens in addiction. Is like, yeah, you engage once, you're going to want to engage again, and no matter how much you change the way you think, if you do engage, that does create the desire. So we can't ignore the reality of addiction. We have to just accept that, yeah, if I engage, I'm going to want to engage again. That is just the truth. And, I used to talk about all or nothing thinking, and I still think it's really important to detach from the identity of a porn addict, or to detach from the actions that you've made, because it's not your fault. It is something you want to take complete ownership and responsibility for, but it's not your fault that right now you may be struggling to quit porn. You just simply haven't been taught a specific tool, a method to actually overcome this problem for good. And the results that you have in your life are just going to be a byproduct of the level of thinking and the processes and systems that you have in your life. And so if you do want to learn how to overcome this problem for good, then you really need to implement a specific method, and hopefully we can teach parts of that through this podcast and the YouTube channel. And if you are looking for more help with that, then of course you can get the free training at www.beyondcompulsionacademy.com, and hopefully that can step you in the right direction as well. So thanks a lot for listening to this short video, this short podcast, and hopefully it will be useful to you. Hopefully you can realize that actually, if you engage once, you're going to want to engage again and again and again, and really you do want to take an approach where you stop engaging altogether. Permanent mental freedom is possible. You can actually get to a position where you do that. And we'll see you in the next podcast, where we'll be talking more about this as well.